Ding, 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 ding.
Good Monday morning. Happy President's Day. Amy Jacobson here. Bruce Wolf filling in for Dan Proft this week.
Top of the morning.
Yeah. Did you watch the 60 Minutes interview last night?
No, because
with
they
Andrew
didn't.
McCabe.
They left things out.
Well,
of
what
it,
do you
I
mean? No, this
understand.
is what we learned. That somebody was going to wear a wire into the White House, and that man was Rod Rosenstein. And why was he going to do it? Because they did not like the tone President Trump was taking about the Russian probe.
We talked about why the president had insisted on firing the director and whether or not he was thinking about the Russia investigation and did that impact his decision. And in the context of that conversation, the Deputy Attorney General offered to wear a wire into the White House. He said, I never get searched when I go into the White House. I could easily wear a recording device. They wouldn't know it was there. Now, he was not joking. He was absolutely serious. And in fact, he brought it up in the next meeting we had.
Well, because Rod Rosenstein, when asked, he said, oh, that was just a joke. But it wasn't.
I never actually considered taking him up on the offer. I did discuss it with my general counsel and my leadership team back at the FBI after he brought it up the first time.
The point of Rosenstein wearing the wire into a meeting with the president was what? What did he hope to obtain?
I can't characterize what Rod was thinking or what he was hoping at that moment. But the reason you would have someone wear a concealed recording device would be to collect evidence. And in this case, what was the true nature of the president's motivation in calling for the firing of Jim Comey?
The general counsel of the FBI and the leadership team you spoke with said what about this idea?
I think the general counsel had a heart attack. And when he got up off the floor, he said, that's a bridge too far. We're not there yet.
So let me get this straight. We in Chicago are consumed about some guy basically perpetrating a hoax, a fake hate crime. Meanwhile, we came this close to a coup in the United
because
States.
the two of them also
Am I
discussed
right?
about... No, let me finish. They also discussed rounding up cabinet members and Vice Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment, saying that he's not fit for office. To get the latest on this and reaction, let's go to our good friend and returning guest, Ed Morrissey, senior editor for hotair.com and columnist for The Week. Good morning, Ed. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, so what did you think of the big bombshell there on 60 Minutes last night?
Well, I was trying to decide which bombshell we were going to talk about, whether it was going to be a Jussie Smollett bombshell or the Andrew McCabe bombshell. A lot of bombshells going off around here. It was sort of leaked by Scott Pelley of CBS News, the whole 25th Amendment thing, and Rod Rosenstein wearing the wire, which was a story that was reported back in September. And earlier today, yesterday, I should say, Fox News was reporting that former FBI General Counsel James Baker told House Judiciary and House Oversight Committees that McCabe and Lisa Page had come to him saying that they had at least two of Trump's cabinet members ready to sign on to a 25th Amendment push to get him out of office. So McCabe was saying on Friday, oh, no, he misunderstood. I wasn't the one pushing this. It was Rod Rosenstein who brought it up, and we just had one brief conversation about it. Apparently, last fall when Baker was testifying to the two House committees, he told a much different story than McCabe told on Friday in response to the blowback on this. So about the best thing you can say here is that Andrew McCabe is not getting his story straight. Something very strange is going on here. And I know that Lindsey Graham is going to hold hearings of the Senate Judiciary Committee to try to figure out what was going on at the Department of Justice.
But considering Andrew McCabe's past, should people trust him?
No.
Remind us of what he did.
He got fired for lying. He lied to FBI investigators, and he got fired a few days ahead of his retirement because of it. This is a guy who was very deeply involved in the decision to open up a counterintelligence operation against a presidential candidate. And at least from what we've found so far, there doesn't seem to be a lot of basis for that. And then you mix into that the idea that there was all these texts going back and forth between the FBI agents that showed an anti-Trump bias, and then you have this very strange idea coming out of the FBI and the Department of Justice that they can initiate a 25th Amendment removal of a president, which is absolutely not true. The Department of Justice has absolutely no role in that. And the FBI has even less than absolutely no role in that. And it points to this notion that the whole thing was a politically orchestrated hit on Donald Trump, and it really saps the credibility of the counterintelligence investigation that was initiated, which was the basis of what Robert Mueller is doing right now. I think Robert Mueller must be looking at this and saying, hey, thanks a lot, guys. You're really helping me out here.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a plaintiff's attorney, and I always like it.
And an all-around good guy.
Not really. When defendants are pointing the fingers, you got at each other. They're joint tortfeasors, and because we were led to believe that these are these good old John Law types who follow the playbook, but they're arguing and accusing each other of lying right now, and it doesn't look very good. And it just, as you mentioned, it kind of eviscerates the whole raison d'etre for the Mueller investigation at this point.
Well, I think you're right. And by the way, thank you very much, because I love the term raison d'etre, and nobody ever says it anymore.
Well, I had it for dinner last night.
Yeah, it was good.
It was wonderful.
A little flambé.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really great. You're absolutely correct, though, about this, Bruce, which is that the whole Mueller investigation is predicated on that counterintelligence probe that was opened up by the FBI by Andrew McCabe and others who have been shown to be, at the very least, reckless in how they approach their job, and you can also say probably at the least were inclined to abuse their power. I mean, you can't sit around the Department of Justice trying to figure out whether or not you're going to be able to convince cabinet members to throw out Donald Trump for firing your boss and not have people come to the conclusion that you're trying to abuse your power. And I think that's really the most egregious part of this, and it just bleeds all over Robert Mueller's investigation. Anything that comes from that source is, fruit from the poison tree. Now, we talk about that in terms of Miranda, in terms of keeping evidence out. That's clear. This is clearly more political than legal when it comes to what Mueller is doing here. But it's still going to taint everything that comes out of this.
All right. I wanted to switch gears and talk about what happened on Friday in the Rose Garden. President Trump declaring a national emergency along our border. So for me, it feels like he's trading a battle in Congress for one in the courts. But he took out the urgency out of the emergency when Peter Alexander from NBC News said, why are you doing this? He goes, well, I don't have to do this, but I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's not exactly what you want somebody to say when you have to try to back up their claim in court. I mean, he's basically conceding the idea that this isn't the type of emergency that the legislation was meant to do. The problem with this, and I think that this is a terrible precedent to set. I think that Donald Trump shouldn't have done this. But the problem that this really sets, or that this really reflects, is the fact that Congress gave presidents this power in the first place. If you need a national emergency declared, Congress is in session all year long. If it's a true emergency, they can come together and declare an emergency. It's not that difficult to do. And we've had this now for 40 years, often 43 years, I think, was passed in 1976. And there's been 60 emergencies declared. I mean, there's been 60 emergencies that a president has declared over the last 43 years. Every president has declared them. They're usually pretty mundane, and can anybody remember even 5 of these national emergencies?
Well, I remember after 9/11, I remember that, and I remember President Obama declaring a national emergency when it came to Dreamers' parents and deporting them. He halted their deportation.
No, but Ed, Martha Raddatz said a clever one yesterday.
What?
Substituting for Stephanopoulos. She said to Jim Jordan, can you give me an example where a president asked for something that Congress rejected, and the president went ahead and said he would do it anyway? And Jordan really didn't have an answer for that one. So there's a little distinction there.
Yeah, and this is the reason why Congress never should have handed the authority over to the presidency in the first place, right? I mean, this is a mistake from the Congress in 1976, and it should be rectified, and I think it might be after this. I think Congress might want to take a look at this and repeal that law, because it's unnecessary. And you're going to end up doing, if it wasn't Trump, it was going to be somebody else down the road. And Obama sort of kind of sidled up to that line with the DAPA-DACA emergency declaration as
Fred
well.
Flintstone who did that? I think Fred Flintstone did the DAPA-DACA. Look, Ed,
DAPA-DACA,
the DAPA-DACA.
Something else.
Yeah, but here's the thing. And I think David French was the one who brought this out in National Review. But he's a cuck. So here's the thing. The distinction between a military use and a civilian use. And Trump is trying to make the argument that, well, we've got 4,000 troops at the border. This is a military use, but it's really not the same as a wartime situation. This is a civilian border, and you're basically, this isn't not like when the dress is the dress gold or the dress blue. This is really playing around with the language, isn't it?
Couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a bad precedent to set. I think it's something that shouldn't have happened, and Congress is not going to be able to stop it because they might be able to have enough votes to formally reject the declaration of emergency, but that formal rejection can be vetoed by Donald Trump, and they don't have enough votes to override a veto on it. And again, I think they're going to look at this and realize that they've kind of given away the candy store in terms of the direction of funding to the executive branch, and they're going to have to fix this at some point down the road. So I think that even in an emergency situation, you have the War Powers Act, which covers that type of thing, where you have to get troops someplace to deal with a threat to national security, and you can't it'll take Congress a few days to get together on that. The War Powers Act covers that. You don't need this emergency declaration mechanism that Congress gave Gerald Ford back in 1976.
Ed, you're very smart, and I love hotair.com, and I plagiarize it from all the time when I tweet. But here's the thing. Today is President's Day, and I'm going to sandbag you. We've been doing this with all our guests.
Ed.
Can you name for me the 22nd President of the United States, Ed Morrissey? Can you name the
22nd President?
Yeah.
Well, Chester A. Arthur was the 21st, so was it Benjamin Harrison?
I'm sorry. Here's a hint. I'll let you get the consolation prize. He was also the 24th President of the United States.
Oh, Grover Cleveland.
Okay, you get the consolation prize,
look at
Ed.
You.
Very, very nice.
Ed, do you want to talk about Jussie Smollett? What do you think of what's going on? Isn't this crazy?
It's crazy, and I'll tell you this. I mean, I've written about it a little bit. We've written about it quite a bit at Hot Air.
Good.
I would just tell everybody to sort of, hold their jets on this, wait for the police or the grand jury. Apparently, TMZ is reporting that it's going to go to a grand jury next week. It certainly looks suspicious, and it looks suspicious to a lot of us right from the very beginning because it was just so over the top and so ridiculous. Plus the idea that you had two guys in Chicago that, voted for Donald Trump. I mean, that's... One, maybe. Okay, but two, that's
well, they couldn't find a MAGA hat in Uptown.
They just got a red stocking cap.
They couldn't find it because there isn't one.
There isn't one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, right? I mean, it's Uptown Chicago. And so I would also say for everybody else is don't necessarily conclude that this is a hoax. Certainly be skeptical, and I would say at this point be extremely skeptical.
Wait a minute, Ed, I've done my victory lap already, and you're telling me I got to take it back?
Well,
you
wait
think
for the grand jury to come back and see what they have to say. But I mean, there's no rush on this type of thing. And what the problem with this story always was that there was this jump to conclusions based on what is clearly a questionable claim, and using that to paint millions of people as racists and homophobes on the basis of something that may not be true at all.
Well,
and it wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
Come on, Ed. We know. You know we're racists and homophobes. You know that.
Right. All right, Ed Morrissey, we're going to have to leave it there for today.
Thank you.
Senior editor for hotair.com and columnist for the week. Always a pleasure having you on, and have a great President's Day.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.